February 9th, 2026, 1:42 a.m. local time. U.S. Central Command Headquarters, Al Udeid Air Base, Qatar. A radar operator stares at his screen. Something is wrong. The AN/TPS-80 ground-based radar has detected a launch, ballistic trajectory, origin point, Iranian territory, 127 kilometers northeast of Bandar Abbas. Projected impact zone, the Persian Gulf. Specifically, a 12 square kilometer area containing exactly one target worth hitting. USS Ross, an Arleigh Burke class destroyer conducting patrol operations. The operator hits the alert button. Time since launch detection, 4 seconds. Vampire, vampire, vampire. Ballistic launch detected. Single missile, tracking toward surface vessel in grid reference. The warning reaches USS Ross at 1:42:11, 11 seconds after the Iranian missile left its launcher. Impact in approximately 3 minutes and 30 seconds. The ship's crew has everything they need. Early warning, precise tracking data, time to engage. What happens next will become a case study in how information travels through military systems, and how 214 seconds can simultaneously be enough time and not nearly enough. I'm your host at Warfare Signal, where we analyze the systems, decisions, and human factors that determine outcomes in modern combat. This is the story of the longest 3.5 minutes in recent naval history, told through the radar screens, communications logs, and after-action assessments that documented every second. Let's begin with what the operators at Al Udeid were seeing. The AN/TPS-80G/ATOR is the Marine Corps' premier ground-based radar system. It can detect ballistic missiles at ranges exceeding 300 kilometers, track multiple targets simultaneously, provide precise trajectory data for defensive engagements. On June 11th, it was operating as part of the Integrated Air and Missile Defense Architecture, covering the Persian Gulf. At 1:42:07, the system registered a heat bloom consistent with solid fuel rocket motor ignition. Location, 27.3 degrees north, 56.8 degrees east. Altitude at detection, 2,400 meters. Velocity, Mach 2.1 and accelerating. The system classified it automatically. TBM-3, Theater Ballistic Missile, Short Range Category. Probability of hostile intent, 94%. The warning transmission was automatic. Datalink, speed of light. The message reached every connected platform in the theater within 200 milliseconds. USS Ross received it on her Link 16 terminal at 1:42:11. Her Combat Information Center was fully staffed. Condition 3, wartime steaming. The Tactical Action Officer, Lieutenant Commander Patricia Okonjo, was at her station. She had trained for this moment. Simulations, drills, exercises, hundreds of hours practicing response to exactly this scenario. Her reactions were conditioned, automatic. All stations, general quarters, ballistic inbound. TAO has the deck. The announcement echoed through the ship. 329 sailors began moving to battle stations. But here's the problem with ballistic missiles. They don't wait for battle stations. The Fateh 110 variant climbing through the atmosphere was traveling at Mach 3.2. It would reach apogee in 97 seconds. It would begin terminal descent at 1:44:19. It would impact at 1:45:41. That's 214 seconds from detection to impact. General quarters transition takes 4 minutes and 30 seconds on average. The ship would be hit before the crew reached their stations. Lieutenant Commander Okonjo understood this instantly. She didn't wait for the captain, didn't request permission. The standing rules of engagement were clear. Engage ballistic threats automatically. At 1:42:27, she ordered weapons release. The ship's Aegis system was already tracking the incoming missile via the datalink feed from Al Udeid. It had the trajectory. It had the intercept solution. It needed only authorization. SM-2 Block 3. A. Cell 47. Launch at 1:42:31. The interceptor cleared the vertical launch system with 18 G-forces of acceleration. It climbed toward the apogee point where the Iranian missile would begin its descent. Time to intercept, 107 seconds. If you want to understand how integrated air defense actually works in combat, subscribe to Warfare Signal. We break down the systems that press releases don't explain. At Udeid, radar operators continued tracking both missiles. The outbound SM-2 appeared as a friendly track, climbing northeast. The inbound Fateh 110 had reached altitude of 61,000 feet and was still accelerating. At 1:43:04, something unexpected appeared on the screens. A second launch, same origin area, same trajectory profile. A second Fateh 110 climbing 23 seconds behind the first. The tactical picture had just changed. One interceptor was already in flight, committed to the first target. USS Ross had 95 additional vertical launch cells, but the fire control system needed time to compute a new solution. Time to evaluate the second threat. Time to assign weapons. Time they were losing with every passing second. Lieutenant Commander Okonjo made a rapid assessment. The first SM-2 was committed. She ordered a second launch against the new threat. At 1:43:19, SM-2 number 2 cleared the deck, tracking toward the second incoming missile. At this point, USS Ross had 2 interceptors in flight, 2 hostile missiles inbound. Time to first impact, 142 seconds. The mathematics seemed favorable. 2 shots, 2 targets. The SM-2 has a documented success rate exceeding 90% against ballistic threats. But mathematics doesn't account for what happened next. At 1:43:47, the first Fateh 110 began terminal descent. It was on track, aimed at USS Ross. The SM-2 interceptor closed at a combined velocity of Mach 6.4. Impact point calculated at altitude 12,400 feet. Kill probability computed at 91.3%. At 1:44:01 they met. The SM-2's proximity fuse detonated the warhead 8 meters from the Fateh 110. Close. Very close. Shrapnel from the interceptor peppered the Iranian missile's body, but the Fateh 110 kept coming. Later analysis revealed why. The Iranian warhead section had been hardened with additional steel plating. Weight penalty, approximately 30 kilograms. Reduced explosive yield, but increased survivability against fragmentation damage. The SM-2 had damaged the missile's guidance system. The Fateh 110 was no longer tracking precisely, but it was still falling. Still carrying 450 kilograms of explosives. Still aimed at a 12 square kilometer patch of ocean containing USS Ross. The question was, how far off course had the damage pushed it? At 1:44:19, USS Ross launched a third interceptor. Emergency engagement against the wounded first missile. But the geometry was terrible. The SM-2 couldn't reach altitude before the Fateh 110 descended below engagement envelope. At 1:44:38, the second Fateh 110 crossed the intercept point. This engagement was clean. The SM-2 detonated 3.7 meters from target. Direct fragmentation into the warhead section. The Iranian missile broke apart at 41,000 feet. Debris scattered over a 6-kilometer radius of open ocean. One threat neutralized, one still falling. At 1:44:52, USS Ross activated her Phalanx close-in weapon system. The 20mm Gatling gun is designed for cruise missiles and aircraft, not ballistic re-entry vehicles. But it was the only weapon left. The Phalanx radar acquired the falling Fateh 110 at a range of 2.1 kilometers. The system computed a firing solution. The gun spun up to 4,500 rounds per minute, and then the missile disappeared from radar. Not destroyed. The Phalanx hadn't fired yet. The missile had simply dropped below the radar's minimum engagement angle. At 1:45:41, the Fateh 110 struck the water. Impact point, 340 meters off USS Ross's starboard beam. The warhead detonated on contact with the surface. The explosion created a water column 60 feet high. The pressure wave struck the ship's hull with force equivalent to 3,200 pounds per square inch at the point of nearest contact. USS Ross was not hit directly, but she was hit. The hull plating on the starboard side buckled inward, not penetrated, but deformed. 3 compartments flooded partially as rivets and welds failed under stress. The starboard shaft was knocked out of alignment, grinding to a halt with catastrophic bearing damage. 16 sailors were injured by the shockwave, 5 critically. Equipment thrown across compartments. Pipes ruptured. Electrical fires in 2 spaces. The ship lost propulsion. She was adrift in the Persian Gulf, 340 meters from where an Iranian warhead had intended to kill her. A near miss that was also a hit. The damage assessment that followed classified USS Ross as mission killed. She could float. She could not fight. She could not move under her own power. Tugs from Bahrain reached her at 4:15 a.m. She was towed to port over the following 18 hours. Her crew standing at damage control stations the entire time. Repairs took 7 months. Cost $194 million. She returned to service in January 2027 with reinforced hull plating along the starboard side. But the story doesn't end with the ship. It extends to the systems that detected, tracked, and almost stopped the attack. The AN/TPS-80 performed flawlessly. Detection at 4 seconds post-launch. Warning transmitted within 200 milliseconds. The ground-based radar gave USS Ross every possible advantage. Link 16 performed flawlessly. Data sharing between platforms was seamless. The ship knew exactly what was coming, exactly when, exactly where. The SM-2 Block 3A performed within parameters. 2 launches, 1 kill, 1 damage. Against hardened warheads, that's consistent with expected performance. The failure, if it can be called that, was geometric. When the damaged Fateh 110 veered off course, it veered toward the ship. A random deviation that happened to be the wrong direction. If it had veered 30 degrees to port instead of 20 degrees to starboard, it would have missed by over a kilometer. Bad luck. In the military analysis community, they call it the friction of war. Commander James Morrison, captain of USS Ross, was in his cabin when the first warning came. He reached the bridge at 1:43:47, 5 seconds before the first intercept attempt. He watched from the bridge wing as the water column erupted 340 meters away. His after-action statement, later declassified, contained a single notable line. "We did everything right. The systems worked. The crew performed. And we still got hit." That's the reality of modern naval defense. The technologies are extraordinary. The training is rigorous. The integration is seamless. And sometimes, despite all of it, a missile gets through. What would you have done differently? The early warning was there. The time was there. The interceptors launched. And still, a ship was damaged, sailors were wounded, and a 7-month repair bill accumulated. Some problems don't have solutions, only responses. The American response to the June 11th strike was the most comprehensive of the 2026 Persian Gulf incidents. 37 Tomahawk missiles launched from 3 ships. 14 precision-guided bombs delivered by F/A-18 aircraft. 7 distinct target categories struck simultaneously. Iranian missile production facilities, launch sites, command and control nodes, radar installations, naval bases, air defense batteries, Revolutionary Guard headquarters elements. Total estimated damage to Iranian military infrastructure, $4.2 billion. But here's what makes this response different from the others. It included cyber operations. At 6:30 a.m. local time, Iranian air defense networks went dark. Not destroyed physically, disabled electronically. Malware inserted through supply chain vulnerabilities took down the S-300 fire control systems that were supposed to protect Iranian assets. The F/A-18S encountered 0 resistance over their targets. Iranian technicians spent 72 hours restoring functionality. During that window, American aircraft operated with impunity over Gulf waters. This capability had been held in reserve for years. Developed, tested, never deployed. USS Ross's near miss triggered its use. The message to Tehran was unmistakable. Attack our ships, and we will dismantle your ability to defend yourselves. Not just with missiles, with tools you cannot see coming. Iran has not launched a ballistic missile at an American warship since June 11th, 2026. Whether that restraint stems from deterrence, depleted capability, or internal political calculation, analysts continue to debate. What is clear is this: the era of consequence-free provocation in the Persian Gulf is over. Both sides now operate with the knowledge that attacks will be answered. That escalation has costs. That 340 meters is the difference between a damaged ship and a catastrophe. That's the margin we're working with now. Stay informed, stay vigilant. I'll see you in the next one.